And welcome to Evolution Day 2. So we just started a new unit, Unit 8, which is all about evolution. And today's AM asks, what evidence is there for evolution by natural selection? So evolution, we already know, is change over time. And natural selection means survival of the fittest, as proposed by Charles Darwin. But speaking of that survival of the fittest, what does fitness mean in the context of evolution? Does survival of the fittest mean the strongest and fastest of a species survive? Why or why not? So go ahead and pause this video and answer that question. So hopefully you remembered that fitness means best for their environment. Most fit to the current conditions will lead to survival. And I have actually a great little activity that we're going to do during class to explore why that distinction is important. Because evolution is not directional. Evolution isn't trying to make the best organisms. Rather, evolution is dictated by this principle of fitness to the environment, because that will lead to survival and reproduction. And that's the name of the game when we talk about evolution, is survive and reproduce. So let's do a little vocabulary review before we go on. So we already said that evolution is change over time. Again, it's not directional. It's not trying to make the best organism. That's just a side effect. Adaptations, you can think of them as positive mutations, right? So these are inherited traits that improve the chances of survival and reproduction. Like for humans, our thumbs are an adaptation. And natural selection is, again, that theory proposed by Charles Darwin that says this is the process by which evolution happens. So by which organisms better adapted to the environment tend to survive and produce more offspring. All right. So this image should look familiar. We saw this last time. And instead of giving us captions now, we're going to caption it. So we're seeing picture 1, and in picture 1, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 little yellow mice, and, well, I color them yellow, 4 little white mice, and they're a little bit harder to see, 1, 2, 3, 4 little gray mice. And then in picture 2, we can see this hawk is flying over top. And then in picture 3, we see there's only 1 little white mouse left, but the 4 gray mice still chilling. So what happened between those 3 pictures? So we started with a population of mice. Of gray and white mice. Living on gray sand. Predator, hawk, or an eagle ate 3 white mice. Or we can call them 3 out of 4. White mice. Egad. Is the population of mice different in figure 3 than in figure 1? Yes. 3/4 of the white mouse population is gone. So the population was originally 50% white, 50% gray, and now only 1/5, or 20% is white. And we can see that, right? It was 50-50. Only 20% of the white mice remain. Well, no, actually. Not 20, only 20% of the mice remain white. Only 20% of mice are white, 80% gray. Right, because 25% of the white mice remain. 1/4. But okay, sorry, parsing hairs on percentages here. Number 3 says, living things that are well adapted to their environment survive and reproduce. Those that are not well adapted to their environment don't survive and don't reproduce. An adaptation is any characteristic that increases fitness, which is defined as the ability to survive and reproduce. Which characteristic of the mice is an adaptation that increased their fitness? So we can see here as clear as day which mice lived. These little gray buddies, gray fur color, was an adaptation, right? And why was it an adaptation? Again, they're not the fastest mice, the strongest mice, the most intelligent mice, but the predators couldn't see them. It's a win for the mice. served as camouflage, which I always spell wrong. But I looked it up, camouflage, right? It was camouflage. It hid the mice from predators. Now, let's say that there's a volcanic eruption near this beach, and the color of the sand changes, and the color of the sand becomes dark black. So these gray mice, maybe there is another type of mouse that has a darker black fur color. Well, these gray mice are still going to be better hidden than the white mice, but the population may come to favor the black fur variation because it will serve as better camouflage. There's actually a very famous incidence of this occurring in industrial Britain with pepper moths, which we will talk about during class. So we're going to have a great example talking about cockroaches. Stay tuned. And pepper moths. We love insects. Insects are really good organisms to observe evolution because they have quick generations. That's also why bacteria is good. But let us continue talking about these mice. It's harder to observe evolution in human populations because we have much longer generations. So the table below gives descriptions of 4 female mice that live in a beach area, which is mostly tan sand with scattered plants. According to the definition given for fitness, which mouse would biologists consider the fittest? Explain why this mouse would be the fittest. So we can see here, there's black mice, tan and black mice, and cream mice. And we're told already that the sand is tan. And we can see here, these mice are living the longest. They're having by far the most pups. And they're not necessarily the fastest mice. So unequivocally, without question, the tan mice are surviving, right? They're living longer. And they're reproducing more. Right? So we're not talking about fitness like you're in the gym working on your fitness. We are talking about fitness like you are in the gym trying to find a romantic partner with which you can reproduce. So the tan mice living longest and having the most pups. We can see this in the data, right? 8 months versus 4 months. They're living twice as long as the second longest living mice, and they're having 3 times as many offspring. Tan fur acts as camouflage on tan sand. All right, number 5. If a mouse's fur color is generally similar to its mother's color, so fur color is a heritable trait, what color fur would be most common among the pups? And this is how an adaptation can change a population over time. This first generation of mice might have had 25% black, 25% tan, 25% tan and black, and 25% cream. But by the next generation, there's 11 tan mice, no black mice, 3 tan and black mice, and 0 cream mice. That means the next generation is going to be mostly tan. And that is how an adaptation becomes more common in a population and how a species can change over time. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Bless me. Okay. Last bit, part C, read and evaluate. A characteristic which is influenced by genes and passed from parents to offspring is called heritable. Over many generations, heritable adaptive characteristics become more common in a population. This process is called evolution by natural selection. Evolution by natural selection takes place over many, many generations. Again, it's change over time, and we mean a long time. Evolution by natural selection leads to adaptation within a population. The term evolution by natural selection does not refer to individuals changing, only to changes in the frequency of adaptive characteristics in the population as a whole. So I'm going to repeat that part because it is important. So evolution refers to the frequency of adaptive characteristics in the population as a whole. So populations adapt. Individuals do not. So let's say you learn over time that your fifth period teacher always goes to the bathroom before class. So you adapt. You show up a little bit later to that class. That way you're not waiting in the hallway before she comes. Now, that might be appropriate use of that vocabulary in an English class, but in biology, that would not be an adaptation. That is just something behavioral that you are doing. That would not be a heritable adaptation, but the fact that you have thumbs on your hands that allow you to text in the hallway while you wait for your teacher, that is an adaptation that develops over many generations to help human beings survive. So, for example, for the mice that lived in the beach area with tan sand, none of the mice, the living mice, had a change in the color of their fur. However, due to natural selection, tan fur was more common for the pups than for the mother mice. It affected the next generation. Right? That's why reproduction is so important, because then the next generation will have the adaptive traits become more common until over time, a whole new species can evolve depending on how much change is really happening. And that can have to do with changes to the environment as well. This is why Earth has had different organisms throughout geological time, because the Earth has changed. In summary, a heritable characteristic that helps an animal or plant to have more offspring which survive to reproduce will tend to become more common in a population as a result of evolution by natural selection. So a characteristic which helps an animal live longer will generally become more common in the population as a result of evolution by natural selection. You should be able to answer this question on your own. I'm just going to add that your answer needs to mention reproduction. We're going to talk about more examples of evolution by natural selection having to do with cockroaches and peppered moths in class. For now, today's aim was what evidence is there for evolution by natural selection? This was Unit 8, Day 2. I'm Ms. Parsons, and I'll see you guys on Zoom tomorrow. Have a fantastic day. Bye, guys.